Hey everyone, Brayden here coming to you with an extremely special video. I know I often say that. This is going to be a special video. This is really going to be an extra special video because this whole week I have been at IAAPA, the IAAPA Expo here in Orlando. What is that? Well, IAAPA stands for International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions. And what this event is, what this organization does, they host this event, this expo here in Orlando. It's a trade show every year. I believe it's one of the largest trade shows in the world. It is extremely impressive. It fills up the entire Orange County Convention Center, which if you're not aware is quite a big convention center. If you look at the map of this thing, the expo this year, it looks like a computer chip, right? It is insane. So what you have is you have all these different color-coded sections, which basically are their own self-contained pavilions. So you have food service companies in one area, you have the roller coaster companies, you have all these different areas where you can talk to the people that actually bring these attractions to life that we talk about here and cover here on the channel insofar as Disney and also Universal. We've been covering Epic Universe. I was able to talk to some people who are working on that as we speak. So needless to say, it was a really cool time, and I was gonna do a vlog of it, but you know, the expo show floor, it's pretty loud, and I really didn't want to just do a video where I'm like, look guys, there's costumed characters, look guys, bubbles, you know, that's basically what I did back in 2019. This year, I really wanted to spend my time actually talking to the people at these booths, because at these booths, at the show floor, you know, these are the manufacturers that bring everything we see in these parks to life. And, you know, at these booths, you have everyone from the president to, you know, people that are more near my age that are actually doing all the software, all the design and things of this nature, you know, all the nitty gritty CAD work and things like this. So I really just wanted to talk to people and actually get an understanding of what the sentiment currently is, what is currently being worked on, the evolution of the technology in this space, and just overall getting a better understanding of what exactly is going on with all this. And this is extra cool. This is very, very Disney related. I was able to attend the Legends panel. This year, the IAAPA Expo panel that they had, the Legends panel, was hosted by a former Imagineer, and the panelists, you had several Imagineers as well as the current VP of Epcot. So you know I wanted to go to that. I got there quite early. There was a huge, huge line, and I was able to get in. The panel was entitled Epcot, 40 Years in a State of Becoming. And a big part of what I do on this channel is I try to set your guys' expectations right. So the reason I bring that up is when I saw the title of this panel, you know, it makes it sound like it's going to be more of like a historical panel. They're going to go through each year. This is what Epcot was in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. Of course, that wasn't what it actually was, and I didn't expect it to be. I expected it to be mostly about what Disney's currently doing, their current project, because a lot of the people that comprise the panel are current employees, current people at very high level positions at Disney that are overseeing the Epcot overhaul that we cover so much on this channel. And that was totally fine with me. I wanted to hear more details about what their idea is for this Epcot overhaul, because I think we can all agree that the direction seems kind of muddled. What's the theme? What's the purpose of the park anymore? Things of this nature. What's the rationale for how the park's gone from something that people really, really, really loved and are talking about to this day? We used to have Horizons to now where it's much more of like a food festival type of thing. And a lot of the things that make Epcot special and the Epcot fan base you have, they are mostly fans of things that previously were at the park, and Disney continues to capitalize merchandising wise off of previous attractions and nostalgia, things that you used to have in Epcot that Disney no longer pursues or does anything with. I mean, even Figment, who they use a lot in Epcot, you know, you look at Figment's attraction, I was on it quite recently and there were all sorts of malfunctions going on, and the attraction is old and definitely needs a lot of work. So it sort of makes you wonder, like, what exactly is their idea with this Epcot overhaul? And that was what I wanted to see at this event. Now, you might be getting the sense of what I'm going to say here. That was actually not what the event was about. So I already set my expectations where I thought they should be. What the panel was actually about, most of all, was management. It was about management and leadership. And basically what it was is you had Bob Rogers, who is this former Imagineer. He is the host of the panel, and he is asking some pretty good questions. And he's saying all these sorts of asides and, you know, things from his time at Imagineering that were really, really interesting. But what you actually saw from the people who are still affiliated with Disney or working at Disney, you have Bob Weiss up there, who is the former president of Walt Disney Imagineering. He's still doing stuff at Imagineering. You have Jody McLaughlin, who is a current Walt Disney Imagineering executive portfolio manager. And then you also had up there Epcot's current vice president. Her name is Kartika Rodriguez, who is also up there, and she's more on the operational end. Now, the way these current Disney people talked, you can probably imagine what we heard a lot of. We heard the word activations, From Jody, there was some insight into sort of the management of Imagineering, what their philosophy is, the personnel they hire, things of this nature. She was saying sometimes people are a bad culture fit, a bad personality fit, something like this. You heard a lot of those sort of like corporate jargony sorts of words. It's just not very good language to hear. You really start to realize that the management of Disney, it's talkers, and you need managers, right, for any project to succeed. So it's not like management itself is the problem, but the people that currently occupy these management positions, it's a lot of these platitudes, it's a lot of these cute phrases they came up with, and there's very much a sense of closed-mindedness, in my opinion. You basically have this feedback loop of people who all agree with each other, and they all get on board and say all these phrases, and if you really have anyone who is, sort of going by the beat of their own drum, sort of wants to do things a little different, they are a bad culture fit, a bad personality fit, and they are sent on their merry way. And this ties into something I noticed on the expo show floor. You have companies that are currently working with Universal on Epic Universe who are former Imagineers, former senior executives at Imagineering. They went out and started their own companies. And I'm talking about people as recently as last year, the year before, who were furloughed by Disney. They used the excuse of, the events of the last 2 years to say, hey, we can't pay you anymore. Basically gave these people the shaft where they had to leave. And we've seen a lot of this lately where a lot of the old guard Imagineers, they've been effectively forced out of Imagineering. And who do we have left? It's people that are talking about activations, bad culture fit, things like this. And I just thought that stuff was not very likable. So I found that quite interesting. So needless to say, the panel, I was kind of iffy on it. It might sound like I'm being super critical of it, but the thing is that, I think that a lot of people really liked the panel. I really wish they would have talked about the Epcot project. We got almost no information about the Epcot overhaul or anything along those lines. Jody, who is the senior executive Imagineer, she actually mentioned Bob Chapek in a very favorable way, where she was saying that Bob Chapek gave them the guidance for Epcot. Their mandate was more family, more Disney, more timeless. Remember that stuff that Bob Chapek said at the D23 Expo back in the day?
It's also more timeless, more relevant, more family, more Disney.
This was like inspirational stuff, I guess. One stat that we did get is that the last 2 years, so everything that's been done with the Epcot overhaul, we know that they've updated their vision for the center area, where it used to be that elevated structure and it was much more of an expensive middle area, and now they're basically rebuilding part of the innovations that they destroyed that's currently rising in Epcot. All that updated design work that they did was conducted over Zoom, as Jody said. Here's that.
We designed a whole bunch of this new transformation of Epcot through Zoom. We had meetings with the team, with the operations team, and with the design team, creative development. For 2 years, we worked remotely, and we came up with these amazing ideas that are actually being built as we speak, some of which have already opened. So it forced us to think differently.
So that was the panel. I don't want to be overly critical of it and the people currently at Disney, because they are working with a constrained budget, right? So a lot of this is just, they're saying nice things, but I think something that does make me even more critical is I was talking to people, that are more near my age who were working at Imagineering, and it was really a situation where they couldn't move up. And basically, if you're someone my age, what you have to do is you have to go from company to company to company to company and go around in a circle, basically, and then maybe you'll get a better job at Disney down the road and stuff like this. So the whole management structure and the whole way that they actually hire talent seems like it is not something Walt would approve of. And I found it especially interesting how Bob Weiss, for example, who's been the president of Walt Disney Imagineering for so long, he's talking about how he started off serving ice cream on Main Street in Disneyland. And the thing that bothers me about this is that is absolutely not how Imagineering works today. And in fact, they even have a rationale for why that's not how Imagineering works today. They said during the panel, back in the day, Imagineering needed the best and brightest to bring these parks to life. They couldn't find any, so instead they settled for us. That sort of thing, which is basically a way of inferring that now they do have a way to find the best and brightest through, the education system, through, the more traditional methods where they offer internships. They use the name, the patina of the Imagineering name, to pay people not very much to sort of contribute their creative, and then it's like on to the next company, and the next company, and the next company, because unless you have some sort of close relationship with the people at the very top, you are not going going to be upwardly mobile within the company. I will say a lot of people who are currently at Imagineering, who I talk to, are very, very happy they're there. They love it, but I really feel that the management could be improved. That is my opinion. And needless to say, I would be considered a bad personality fit by the current executives at Disney, needless to say. So that was the panel. I don't want to spend too long on that because there's so much else that happened, which was so awesome here at IAAPA. So getting to the show floor, it's Thursday, it's game time. I'm there with my bros. We're walking around, I'm having fun with the shooting gallery. And I also we were having a lot of fun with the machine where you punch it, trying to get the highest score possible. That was a great time as well. And so we're sort of walking around, and there's a lot of stuff that isn't super related to, my interests and my friends' interests, obviously, Disney, Universal, these highly themed, super cool, immersive environments. It was more stuff, it was like arcade games and things like this, sort of like concession stand type stuff. And then we happen upon, this is the first thing that's sort of in our milieu that we happened upon. It was one of the kites from Kite Tales at the Animal Kingdom, that show that Disney did for the 50th anniversary that recently ended. They had one of the Kite Tales kites there over the booth, and this was the booth for Kiteman Productions, and they are the ones who actually created the Kite Tales show. The kites that you saw there, they're the ones that were driving them around on the jet skis, and they also did the kites for Epcot Forever, and those are some of my favorite things that we've ever seen show element-wise in the World Showcase Lagoon. So needless to say, I was super hyped up about that. So when I get up to the booth, they recognize me, not just as Mickey Views though, they recognize me as Kite Tales Defender, because I was one of the proponents of that show that a lot of people said, was low budget, wasn't very good. For a 50th anniversary edition, for something as big as the 50th anniversary, was it really at the 50th anniversary level? No. Did that have anything to do with Kiteman Productions and the work they did? Absolutely not. And what it is it's just a fun kite show for families, and we were talking about it, and I think that a big issue with that show, it did get a lot of criticism online, but I think what actually ended it was the fact that there weren't a ton of people watching the show. And I don't think that's because the quality of the show was terrible or anything like that. I think what it was is that there was no covered seating. And this seems to be something that Disney's gonna have to do something about. It sounds like it'd be very expensive to actually do covered seating in that area by Expedition Everest. But if Disney's gonna have any daytime show out in that water that's gonna last, they need to have some sort of covering there, because what I heard is some of those seats, they're 120 degrees Fahrenheit some days in the middle of the summer. So needless to say, I think that was a big contributor to why families, especially actually at a difficult time. So I think that was a big contributing factor. And I think that most people would agree with me that the work they did for Epcot Forever was really cool. And the crazy stuff is the owner of Kiteman Productions, he's been doing work for Disney since Surprise in the Skies. That was how they got their start. That was a show way back when. It was 30 years ago in Epcot. So these guys, they've been around for a long time, needless to say, making stuff for Disney and really being part of what makes Disney Disney. And this is something that you don't really think about a whole lot because we really see the PR end of Disney, right? Where they're marketing the product and, they credit Walt Disney Imagineering, who obviously does the creative, but you also have all of this contract work that Disney contracts out to actually manufacture stuff. So to actually talk with all these different companies that are really behind a lot of these projects that we talk about was extremely cool. And those guys were awesome. So needless to say, that was actually my favorite booth this year. So also another awesome booth was Garner Holt. So Garner Holt Productions is actually the company that currently does all the animatronics for Disney. They do the animatronics for Disney. If you recall, that used to be done in-house at Disney with Mapo, which of course is Mary Poppins put together Mapo because it was basically paid for by the box office returns for Mary Poppins, and this was Walt's brainchild, obviously, and this is where they were doing in-house R&D, creating all this technology that makes theme parks. Now the problem is that R&D is very expensive. To continually do R&D is a big expense. So what Disney would rather do is pay per use, right? So have a different company, a separate company, develop the animatronics, develop all the technology, and then when Disney needs an animatronic, they can just do a one-time payment, pay for an animatronic. So basically it's sort of like an off-the-shelf type thing that Disney wants instead of having to pay for all the R&D in-house and have it all be proprietary. Of course, the downside here is now Universal obviously is getting a lot of animatronics, top-tier animatronics, stuff that used to be proprietary for Disney. So when you sort of outsource that out to cut costs, there is a consequence there. What they had on display at Garner Holt, the big attraction was the Baby Yoda animatronic, and this thing is incredible. You've probably seen a lot of Grogu toys and some of them look a little odd. You know, it doesn't look exactly right, doesn't look exactly like what you see on screen. It is a very intricate thing to model, and to get the material textures right for Grogu's skin, to make it look right, it's very complicated stuff, and needless to say, Gardner Holt absolutely blew it out of the water. Now, in other news, over in Disneyland, we just had the Mandalorian walk-around character show up at Galaxy's Edge out in Disneyland, and he has Grogu with him. We saw this on stage at the D23 Expo. I believe that animatronic he is with him was created by Gardner Holt, and is basically a version of what we see here on the Expo show floor. So needless to say, some really incredible stuff with all the animatronics and things of this nature. Right next to Gardner Holt, there was the Animax booth where they had this Kuka arm style thing. It's a robotic arm, and it had an eyeball on it with a camera in it, and it was a facial recognition camera. So as you walked through this booth, there was this eye that moves and follows you. It was super, super scary stuff, to be honest, but I documented that a little bit here, as you can see. And they also had basically the skeleton of one of these other animatronics, an animal you can see there doing all sorts of movements. Just more broadly talking about what you actually have on the show floor, there is so much stuff. So you have like the VR games, and you have the arcade games and the concessions and things that are really not theme park related directly, but needless to say, very cool technology. And then you have vendors that do things like projection mapping. Also this year at IAAPA, they had drone companies that do the nighttime drone shows. They even had the company that did the drone show for Disneyland Paris, which is currently celebrating its 30th anniversary, and it basically makes a Mickey behind the castle. The company that did that, they were there. We still haven't gotten drones here at Walt Disney World, but I'm hoping we get them for this new Epcot show they're gonna be doing for Disney's 100th. We'll see. There's definitely a lot of concerns there and technical limitations, but the technology has evolved a lot since the last time Disney attempted to use drones here at Walt Disney World. Where we heard rumors way back in the day, you know, back in 2015 or thereabouts, even earlier, 2014, where Disney was looking into this technology. It's evolved a lot since then, so hopefully they can figure out how to do that, because that'd be amazing. And in the interim, all these manufacturers, they are working on perfecting the technology so we can see it at these parks, which would be really, really cool. Also, you have fire and pyro companies, including one that did the Rainforest Cafe, volcano that you have in Disney Springs, and all sorts of things like that. You have the manufacturers for those. You have companies that do laser shows, sort of like the lasers you see on Cinderella Castle now during the nighttime shows, as well as used in other nighttime shows. They're continuing to be implemented in these nighttime shows at Walt Disney World. And those new lasers are so cool, everything that they can do. It's really, really incredible stuff. You also have 3D printing companies that can rapidly scale, something that's a model and make it manifest, make it into a physical product that can either be sold or actually put into one of these attractions. Of course, you have all the roller coaster manufacturers. One of the big things at this event, this industry event, is that they unveil, ride vehicles and things of this nature. So you have B&M there, who's never done a coaster for Disney that I know of. You also have Mack Rides. I believe it's actually Mock Rides, and they did the Slinky Dog Dash in Toy Story Land, and they're also working on several coasters right now over at Epic Universe. So they're there. They're a big roller coaster manufacturer. And of course, you also have Vekoma, which is huge. They did Tron, they did Guardians. They're definitely a big, big deal and do a lot of the stuff for Disney. So they were there as well. Some other people you have there, you have Gateway Ticketing Systems. I believe they're the ones that do the ticketing system for Disney. The Disney parks are the ones that, do that software. You also had, this was really cool, Whirly Drinkworks. So Whirly Drinkworks, I remember them from 2019. So they have this area where it's just like a bunch of different cups at their exhibit. Now, what Whirly Drinkworks does, you can probably guess, they make all of those different cups and things of that nature that you see at the theme parks. And I'm not just talking about, the resort mugs that you see, the refillable soda mugs that you have at the Disney resorts. I believe they do those. They do everything. They do so much stuff. One of their main guys is they're showing me they have these cups where you pour it in and it lights up, and then when you're out of drink, it's no longer lit up, and the bartender knows to switch it out. All sorts of cool things like this. Anyways, they don't just do the mugs, or like the beverages that you have in the park. They also do the popcorn buckets. That's right, they do the popcorn buckets, at least some of them. That Figment bucket, that was a crazy, crazy thing that was all over the news. That indeed was a Whirly Drinkworks deal, and they have all sorts of stuff, for Halloween, where it's like, a syringe or something like that. They have all sorts of crazy stuff, all sorts of ways to really make it fun for these theme parks. They do some really, really cool work there. So that was very educational. I thought that was really awesome, and that was my experience at IAAPA. I think I covered everything. There's probably something I missed. There's so much going on. As I said, that map, It is insane. It literally looks like a computer chip. There are so many things to check out. There's so many of these vendors. Now, I will say, the IAAPA Expo is very focused on the manufacturing, the vendor type end more so than the creative. So that's why it was quite special that we had Imagineering do a panel there. And that's why I wanted to be at that. But what you have to understand is these days with Disney, the way the funding is, so much of what's being done is being outsourced, is being contracted to these companies you have on the show floor. And I was talking to guys who are working or have recently been working on these various attractions, on these various deals for Disney and Universal. And I really got the sense that, a lot of the companies that mostly make stuff for Disney, mostly do stuff for Walt Disney Imagineering, they're trying to broaden their horizons because, it's clear the direction things are going. And there seemed to be a lot of interest towards, trying to get involved with Universal, trying to get involved with things they're doing because there's money in that. There's actual money flowing over there. There's interest in doing big things, whereas over at Disney, that has not been the case as of late. And I'm hoping that changes. So needless to say, you look at the trade floor and it's just like a bunch of stuff and lights and things moving around. But if you really talk to people, you realize there's like an actual story unfolding all around here. I may not have gotten any sort of breaking news about what's going on with the Epcot overhaul, but what I did gain was an understanding of what exactly this industry is, what exactly it's like right now, and how people in it are feeling. And it really seems to be a story of the tides changing, things shifting towards Universal. That's just my honest take. I'm not saying that as like some sort of thing of like, Universal's the best, Disney's bad. It's really not anything like that. I have not been to Universal Orlando in many, many years. Last time I went was 2014. I'm a Disney guy, but as you've seen with the Epic Universe videos, I am trying to broaden my horizons a little bit. And needless to say, a lot of people who have been diehard Disney creatives and Disney manufacturers, I think a lot of them are sort of, looking to broaden their horizons as well. So we'll really have to see what happens insofar as all of this is concerned, how it develops insofar as this Disney versus Universal war as we get into the mid 2020s, where Disney in terms of offerings has very little to show. And over at Universal, you have so many attractions that are going to be opening all at once summer 2025. And I think Disney thinks that's just going to give them an attendance spike because more people will go down to check out Epic Universe and they'll check out Disney while they're there. They have some evidence, they have some data that points towards that. But I think what Disney isn't keeping in mind is there's also going to be guests like us who have always been only Disney people who are going to be like, you know what, actually half of my normal Disney trip, let's spend that at Universal. And that's where Disney is going to lose a lot of money. I suspect, especially on the resorts end, resort bookings, but we'll see what happens there because I think a lot of the resort bookings, I was over at the Grand Floridian and the Polynesian and the Contemporary, the people that stay at those for a week that spend that kind of money, they are huge Disney fans. If they start splitting their week between Disney and Universal, that's going to be a big hit to Disney. So I hope Disney figures it out. I hope this all resolves for the better. And some of the concerns, some of the stuff I was talking about with Imagineering, it's all worked out for the better. And, hopefully we see in terms of leadership, management, all these things continue to improve. I don't want to come off as some sort of just massive cynic that just, thinks everything's terrible, glass half empty. That is not the case. I am giving you a true picture into what is currently happening. That is what I'm trying to do here on this channel. And people who perceive that as negative, what am I going to do about that? I am talking about what's actually happening here. I am talking to the people who know what's happening because they are living it and it is their job and it is a huge deal to them and they care about this stuff just as much as we do, if not even more. So hopefully I was able to give you some insight into what exactly is currently going on. And as I said, hopefully it improves to the better. I want to give a huge shout out to everybody that I met at the Expo show floor this past week. It was really awesome meeting all you guys. There were attendees, there were, people at the booths, all sorts of people who were giving me shout outs and running into me and things like that. And also I had Dippin' Dots for the first time. Can you believe that? The first time I've ever had Dippin' Dots was today, I do believe. So that was an interesting experience as well. They were pretty good. There were these icy flavored ones. I think I want to try some of the more, the creamy flavors like the cookies and cream, something like that. It was quite good. So that was my time at the IAAPA Expo. I really hope you guys enjoyed this look into all of it. Maybe it was overly honest. I don't know, but I really wanted to give you guys my thoughts as fresh as they could possibly be. I just got back from my last day here at the Expo, and needless to say, I had an amazing time. It was a very insightful time, a very educational time, and also I had a lot of fun as well. I think you guys could tell, so needless to say, it was a really great time, and I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys can take something away from everything I've thrown at you here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to subscribe with those notifications on. I will talk to you soon from the Mickey Mouse Magic Studio here in Orlando, Florida. Just came back from the Orange County Convention Center where I got to see all of this unfold. This is Brayden. Thank you so much for watching. Have a magical day.
In my themed entertainment glossary, value engineering is defined as a process conducted by people who are not engineers in which all value is removed from your project.